Let's start. Welcome to the Candidate Forum for District 9 of the Virginia House of Delegates. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Fairfax area. We look forward to a lively and respectful discussion of the issues. The League of Women Voters is a 105-year-old nonpartisan organization that never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. This forum is co-sponsored by 8 other nonpartisan organizations. Their names were displayed on the slides just a few minutes ago. All of these organizations are committed to supporting the democratic process by providing opportunities to hear directly from the candidates. We particularly thank the viewing audience. This is what American democracy looks like at its best. An opportunity to examine the issues factually, ask questions regarding the things most important to us, and explore the candidates' positions. I am Sarah Mayhew, and I am the moderator. If you want to ask questions, post your question in the chat box. We will use as many questions as possible in our allotted time. The candidates for District 9 are Ms. Carrie K. Delaney, Democrat, and Mr. Nan C. Nguyen, Republican. Each candidate will have a 1-minute opening statement. The order was determined by the order on the ballot. After opening statements, we will have a question and answer segment where each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. Each question will be asked of each candidate. At the end of the question period, candidates will have a 1-minute closing statement. Throughout this forum, the time will be displayed with time intervals, 30 seconds remaining, and a stop sign. Now for the opening statements. The opening statement from Ms. Delaney.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for putting this together. I do want to make sure that I start by thanking the League of Women Voters for your effort, all of the other organizations that have been involved, and also Mr. Nguyen, thank you for being here and engaging in this election cycle. I think it's really important that we have the opportunity to talk about the issues and the issues that we agree on and the issues that we don't agree on. So I really appreciate this forum and the opportunity to be part of this election cycle. So I was elected to the General Assembly in 2017. I currently serve on the House Courts of Justice Committee, on the General Laws Committee. I had been on the Health Committee, but the last full term I have been on General Laws. I chair a subcommittee there, and then I am also chair of the House Transportation Committee, which is obviously one of the most common ground issues that we have is our struggle with transportation, especially here in Northern Virginia, but really across the Commonwealth. I look forward to the opportunity to talk a little bit more about legislation. I'm getting my times up, so a minute goes fast, but it's great to be here with you all.
Now for the opening statement from Mr. Nguyen.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, hi, my name is Nan Nguyen, and I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this together, and Ms. Delaney to join us here. And we take the plunge as the first two candidates, and so that we can open the discussion for everybody, especially in Fairfax County, the largest county in the Commonwealth. Um, I am a first generation immigrant and a U.S. Army veteran, um, a father of three, and yeah, I grew up in Fairfax County, and yeah, all my life went to from elementary school to high school here, and went to college at Virginia Tech. So I am intimately familiar with the area and the issues we face, and hopefully we can have a lively discussion with Ms. Delaney here, and that we can find solutions to the issues that the voters face.
Thank you. Questions, starting with Ms. Delaney, and then the order of questions will alternate. The first question, what are your top two legislative priorities and why are they so important?
And muted. A great question. So I will say that we are in the process right now of formulating our legislative package for this coming session. I've got a running list of bills that we are exploring all of the details on. I am still open to hearing from constituents about your ideas because I will tell you that those are some of the most important and meaningful pieces of legislation that I've been able to pass have been those which come directly from the community. But that said, I think the issues that we are the most focused on for next session, one deals with prescription drug affordability. I've been the patron of the Prescription Drug Affordability Board bill for the last few years, looking to really bring together stakeholders on this issue and find some common ground solutions in that space. So that is a really big issue that we are focusing on. And I think similarly in that healthcare space, looking to further protections for those who might encounter medical debt. I'll hopefully have the opportunity to talk a little bit about legislation that I've passed. That's an area of focus. Another big focus of mine is working with vulnerable populations, and that ranges anywhere from domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. I've done a lot of work in that space, and we're working on several bills that continue the effort that I have made in the General Assembly to advance the voice of survivors and make sure that we are having good laws on the books that protect everyone.
Oh, I can't hear you, moderator.
Thank you. I'm repeating the question. What are your top two legislative priorities and why are these so important?
Yes, and thank you. You know, with the rising costs of living, has just been a nightmare, and Fairfax County is probably the hardest hit in the Commonwealth, and actually, you know, that makes us all vulnerable. You know, the vulnerable population. I mean, that's just everybody. We can't afford housing. You know, property tax goes up every single year, and yeah, you know, not to mention groceries, gas, and everything along that line. So, my top legislative priority would be to make living more affordable for everybody. That's including cutting the car tax. Um, you know, which is huge, making housing more affordable. We gotta build more units of housing, and another priority is for parental rights and school choice. And you know, we've had many issues with our schools recently, um, and being a parent of school age kids, I think it's important that parents have a voice in their children's education, and that we have choices and allow parents to make those choices.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Nguyen, the second question. With increasing costs of living, often both parents in a family need to work. What can be done to provide financial assistance for childcare costs?
That's a great question because you know I am a, single father, so I am on one income, and you know raising children of my own, and without little help, and you know uh, uh, that is tough, and but you know it's not always the government that has to step in for help. But what we are providing is that we're cutting the car taxes. We're cutting other taxes so that that parents have more money to afford for other things. Now with childcare, we have to um, spur the growth of childcare services so that it can lower the cost for everybody. I know it's been very hard to find childcare, um, but it's limited. You know, other childcare services are uh, there's a there's many things regulations to uh, prevent people from starting childcare and private schools. So that's what I'm talking about is school choices, so that we can have private schools, Montessori schools, other schools, pre-K schools that allow that's affordable for parents to send their children to, which is also a form of childcare, but they're getting education
Thank you,
um,
Mr.
along
Nguyen.
with
Your
that as
time is
well.
up. Ms. Delaney, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, no, thank you. So I think that we do need to look at all of the options on the table when it comes to making childcare more affordable because it is a major economic impact for a lot of families. A lot of families do really just face an impossible decision with rising costs of childcare, impossible costs of childcare. And when you have one member of the family out of the workforce, that affects the economy. When there are families where you have one parent, how do you possibly juggle the incredible cost of childcare on one salary, especially here in Northern Virginia? These are the real kind of kitchen table issues that are affecting everyone with children that here in Fairfax County, and it has a really direct impact on our economy. So I think it is important that we look at everything on the table when it comes to universal pre-K and looking for ways to incentivize companies to provide childcare for their employees, maybe through solutions like tax credits, or looking for other types of incentives, as well as looking for opportunities for Virginia to partner with those who do provide childcare, especially for low-income families, to make sure that that is a viable solution for them. Because I think we have to start looking at issues like this different than spending. We hear a lot about government spending, but I think there are certain things where government has the opportunity to make investments. And when we see it through the lens of making an investment, we get a return on investment. And when you have people re-entering the workforce, even if it requires an investment up front, you're going to see that return come back to
Thank
our
you, Ms.
economy.
Delaney. Your time is up. Our next question for Ms. Delaney to start, what measures would you support to make housing more affordable for working families?
I think that to make housing more affordable, we really have to look at our partnerships with local government as well. A lot of it is a land use decision about the types of zoning and decisions that are made at the county level about what is appropriate for different parts of our region. So I think having a collaborative relationship with our local governments would be key. In places around Virginia where maybe that is less an option, I think we also need to then look at what are the opportunities for the state to set certain regulations to make sure that we are both giving the flexibility to our local governments to make some of those land use decisions, as well as, again, looking at some of the investment opportunities that we may have as a Commonwealth to ensure that communities have the resources that they need to be incentivized to make some of those decisions when developers are contemplating what they might want to do with the project. I think it is a collaborative effort. It's not something that the state alone can necessarily fix, but I do think it requires a collaboration between local government and state government, as well as some of the private industry who are making decisions about the types of properties that can be developed, and making sure that they are incentivized to consider how important it is to make sure that the people who live in our communities can also work, who work in our communities can also live in our communities.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen, the same question. What measures would you support to make housing more affordable for working families?
Yes, and it looks like Miss Delaney and I do have a lot in common. A previous issue, even though Miss Delaney doesn't really give a solution, and I gave a solution for the school choice, where if you spend $20,000 per student on in public school, that money the parents should have a choice to send them to a school of their choice, or homeschool, or whatever that may be. So again, similar ideas with affordable housing, and I should know intimately, because I grew up in affordable housing, and back then there were a lot more land in Fairfax County. Um, but yeah, the past 10 years of Democrats rule in Fairfax County, there's skyrocket housing cost, and there's no more land for housing. So, uh, you know, it's the one party rule that's really hurting the people. And again, solutions are there, like Mr. Laney said. Yeah, we gotta look at partnerships with companies. We gotta look at zoning. But all those things could have been done by the Democrats that's been governing Fairfax County, um, and yeah, that hasn't happened. So if we want those things to happen, we got to change the votes, the party votes in Fairfax County.
Thank you. The next question. How should Virginia respond to the federal government's rollback of Medicaid expansion? How can we ensure affordable access to health care? Mr. Nguyen, you begin this question.
Uh, sure, and I think Governor Youngkin has already done that. It's not really a rollback. I think what President Trump and Governor Youngkin have done is they cut a lot of illegal aliens, uh, people that shouldn't get Medicaid in the first place, and that Medicaid money can go to the actually needy families. And I believe what we have in the budget is what we have is enough for Virginians. And 4 years in a row under Governor Youngkin that we have uh, one of the Virginians, one of the best place to work, and we have good employment, and so that can also be a cure for the need of Medicaid. But the current budget we have is what we have. I believe um, is enough for what we have with with needy families, with the truly people who need them. And again, Medicaid is a temporary um, safety net, and that yes, we do need it. I believe in having Medicaid. I believe in having safety net for everybody, and everybody deserves it.
Thank you.
But
Your time is
thank
up. Ms. Delaney, what is your stance on how should Virginia respond to the federal government's rollback of Medicaid expansion?
So when I ran the first term for my first term in 2017, Medicaid expansion was probably one of the biggest issues on the ballot. That was an issue that was really hitting a lot of people very close to home, and the opportunity to expand Medicaid and provide health care to over 400,000 Virginians as a result of the initiatives that we took in a bipartisan way back in 2018, I think really spoke to the both the needs, but also the strong interest of Virginians in making sure that healthcare continues to be affordable. So it is very concerning to see the federal government making threats to something that we worked really hard in a bipartisan fashion to make sure that Virginians were going to have access to affordable healthcare. So I think we need to do everything possible to make sure that we're protecting that at the state level. I think it does speak to how critical the need is for healthcare affordability overall. And that kind of comes back to some of the other issues that I've worked on as it relates to addressing the rising cost of prescription drugs. When we see certain prescription medications rising so fast beyond that rate of inflation, there needs to be some transparency and accountability that we're not getting from that industry. And so having things like the Prescription Drug Affordability Board, other types of legislation that myself and others are looking at to address the PBMs and some of the other parts of the supply chain as it relates to prescription drug affordability. I think that's a real other issue that we have to focus on as far in the bigger picture around healthcare affordability.
Thank you. Ms. Delaney, the next question. What is your stance on expanding access to early childhood education and preschool programs in Virginia, particularly in low-income communities, so that children are school ready?
So I would answer that in a similar way to the question we had earlier about childcare. I think we need to start looking at those types of issues, less about spending, and more about investment. When we make a choice as a Commonwealth to make investments in programs that support our children and make sure that they are better equipped to thrive in their academic environment and to have that ability to learn early. It has such tremendous impact on their academic success and access to literacy that extends far throughout their entire academic career. We need to start seeing those types of things as investments because we will get a return on those investments. You're going to have a community of thriving students who are going to do better academically and eventually have careers and be able to participate fully and wholly in the workforce. So I think it's a wise investment for us to make, and I fully support that.
Mr. Nguyen.
Uh, yes, I mean that's an issue that are many things we can agree with. But again, going back to the Democrats have been governing one party rule in Fairfax County for 10 years, and it hasn't happened. And I can tell you, as a single parent, that I went through COVID. I could not get access to um, uh, early childhood. I had to pay my way, savings, and I was in need because I was a single father, um, and during COVID, I couldn't work, so I did not have work, and yet I could not get access to pre-K education. So it's uh, is it there? Some parts of it are, but I think the way it's been governed and managed, it's badly managed. No matter how much spending we put into it, we're not getting a return of investment into it. So even if Mr. Laney say it's investment, we're not getting the return of investment on what we put into it. So there has to be some changes. Yeah, we do we want universal early childhood education? Yes, we do. Do we want more money for childcare? Yes, I mean all those issues. Um, Everybody, middle income to low income, we want. Um, but it's also a matter of good management, and we don't have that in FedEx. You still muted, moderator.
My apologies. Mr. Nguyen, what is your position on Virginia's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, RGGI? And how would you address climate change in Virginia?
Um, yeah, a few weeks ago, I met with the Virginia Farm Bureau, and we had lengthy discussion on that. And look, Governor Youngkin already rolled that back. I know President Trump pulled the U.S. Out of the international agreement. So you know, um, is having clean air, clean water, affordable energy very important? Yes, it is very important to me. But we got to do it in a common sense, and in a in a wise way. I don't think some of that those initiatives, and according to the farmers that I talked to, it doesn't fit in common sense. It's not common sense to destroy farmland to build solar farms, right? So we got to do better than that. And we had incentives for putting solar on our current houses and roofs, and that hasn't really happened much in Fairfax County. Um, and there are so many ways, and we got to hit those. Um, but but not the nonsensical stuff like destroying farmland and put solar on them. Um, uh, Again, and again, energy. We
Thank
are
you,
going to
Mr.
need a lot
Nguyen.
of
Your
money.
time is up. Ms. Delaney, would you please address the RGGI issue?
Sure. Thank you for the question. I mean, I think, the environment and climate change is something that we have been really delaying and kicking the can on this issue for far too long. And we are getting to a point where, we really have to make decisions of how to get ahead of something that we've been really behind on. And I think that participating in Reggie is one of those things. We have to be able to cut carbon pollution. It is the impact on our air, on public health, which has just tremendous effects across our whole livelihood, right? And so I think that, looking at a solution that is both going to have that impact on the climate while also, bringing money to Virginia, directly helping, low income home energy upgrades, flood resiliency. I mean, there's so many facets that come with climate change. It's not just the immediate issues that we're seeing, it's the long-term issues that we're seeing, but people are struggling with urgent needs as we see, issues around flooding. And so, and I think the other aspect of it is the job growth that comes with it. And so I think those are all really positive factors. I do think it's important that we continue to remain agile, though. I mean, this is a changing environment, and it's changing set of circumstances. And so I do think it's important to continue to have open conversations with those who are most affected by these decisions, and to recognize that we also need to have the agility that if something's not working, that then we change it.
Thank you. The next question is directed at you, Ms. Delaney. Data centers have become a major point of contention in Northern Virginia and throughout Virginia. A recent report indicated that if the number of data centers continues to grow, Virginia energy demands will nearly triple by 2024. What is your view of increased regulation of data centers? What would you support?
Yeah, this is something we really have to get ahead of. Similarly, we can't wait until they're all built and then we're solving problems later. And it feels like we're kind of already getting in that space. So there are obviously, I've met with people on both sides of this issue, and there are pros and cons that we are, as legislators, are hearing from both sides. We have to figure out the best and most optimal way to balance the fact that there are rising demand. There is a rising demand for what data centers provide. We're seeing technology advance, especially with the use of AI, just the use of the internet, the fact that the infrastructure kind of runs through the East Coast, which makes Northern Virginia kind of an optimal spot for this, recognizing that as long as there's that demand, there is going to be a need to have things like data centers provide the internet and provide, the movement of data for especially AI. I know is one thing we hear a lot about, and the energy consumption that's coming with that. But that has to be balanced with the impact that has on the environment and on the local community. A lot of that is land use decision that's coming from local government, and our local elected officials are going to have to balance the sense of place in our community with the potential tax revenue, with the environmental impact, and the overall impact that these data centers have on the community. So it is a balance we have to strike, but I do support regulations that would really start to address, especially the environmental and local
Thank
concerns.
you, Ms. Delaney. Mr. Nguyen, please address the data center issue. And you're still muted.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and this is one of the big three issues that I've put on my website and in my platform, and we really need to address, and and all the lip service that Ms. Delaney gives. Yet the Democrats were proposing the data centers be put near cup run streams, near water sources that can damage our water source and our environment. And so it's again, yes, we have to balance uh, with clean energy and the environmental impact of these data centers. And right now, we do have a source of energy that can meet some of the energy demands that we have for data centers. We are upgrading the nuclear stations we have at Lake Anna and at Virginia Beach, and proposals for Southwest Virginia, and that Governor Youngkin has been active in proposing and upgrading those, and and that's the nuclear energy is it's already where the stations are. There's no really new land that's needed, and it give us the energy. But yeah, we uh, again, and Fairfax County, we are the most populous county. We have to really keep in mind of our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Now for you, the next question. At this time, Virginia is the only southern state that hasn't restricted abortion. Should Virginia restrict or expand access to abortion? And what policies do you propose?
You know, uh, the abortion. I mean, I'm intimately um, familiar with it. You know, is father of a child that would have been aborted, but his mother and I worked through the issues, and then I get to raise him, um, so that he won't get aborted. So I believe, yes, and I believe in the woman. It's her body. She has a choice, but the men also have a choice. And I think some of the family members also have, if the grandparents, what if the grandparents want the child? So it's a matter of discussion um, between all members of the family, and it's about giving choices to everybody. Um, and again, a lot of what the Democrats proposing are not giving choices to other family members and shut it down entirely. Um, now, it's yeah, it's a private matter, a private choice of the woman, and I don't think the government should have a hand in that or use taxpayers' money for it. So if a woman would like to abort her baby, it's a matter of discussion between her and the father of the baby and other family members.
Thank you, Mr. Wen. Ms. Delaney.
I think it's a decision between a woman and her healthcare provider at the end of the day, and not politicians. It's a private decision that is often a very difficult conversation for women to have. Some of them choose to involve other support members in their community, and others do not. And I think that it is fundamentally a decision between a woman and her healthcare provider to make that very personal decision, and that politicians should not be involved in that. It's about bodily autonomy, and the government shouldn't tell you what you can and can't do with your body. And I think that is something that voters have fundamentally, resoundingly spoken on across the country and here in Virginia. And I think voters have already made that clear. They will have the opportunity to make it clear, however, once again, with the constitutional amendment that was voted this past session and that we anticipate to have passed out of the chamber this coming 2026 session, which will put this on the ballot and give voters the opportunity to decide whether this needs to be, that right needs to be enshrined in Virginia's Constitution.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. The next question is directed at you first. Should Virginia support and assist ICE to detain and deport undocumented people? If so, what support should be provided? If not, what policies should Virginia implement to support undocumented residents?
This has become such an intense issue because what we are seeing is terrifying so many Virginians. We are losing access to due process. And that is what is giving rise to this conversation about how we should be able to collaborate with our federal law enforcement partners, who historically all levels of government should be working cooperatively and collaboratively together. But what we have is a situation where we are seeing every day families getting torn apart. And this is not what was originally promised, that it was going to be criminals and the worst of the worst bad actors who were going to be removed from our communities, who were here illegally. It's a broken immigration system to begin with, but this is not the way we solve it, because that's not what we're seeing happen. What we're seeing happen are people showing up at their regularly scheduled hearings and being pulled out of the courtroom. We're having people just on the news today and every day, a situation of someone either being detained or taken off the streets without any access to due process. I'm hearing from companies saying that even lawful residents, even US citizens who have immigrated here from other countries and look the same, aren't coming to work at the high risk type job sites where they know that ICE are coming and looking for people, because you might have all your documents in place. You might be a US citizen, but we do not have the trust that due process is happening in America, and that's terrifying.
Thank you. Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, Miss Delaney, what is terrifying is seeing an illegal immigrant waiting at Fairfax Mall, you know, right out of our district to kidnap a 3-year-old. That is terrifying. That's terrifying to the residents of of District 9. It's terrifying to other Virginians. There's, you know, I believe in due process. I'm an immigrant, so I've had to, I'm seeing ICE doing the job. I mean, they respect, they have to face district court judges all the time. There are checks and balances that are still in place. I believe that we still have good, strong institutions. I don't think ICE have overstepped the boundaries. It has been over politicized, overcharged. But what has been undercover and underemphasized is the threat to our community of these illegal immigrants that are criminals. I'm not talking about the illegal immigrants that are the hard workers that are, some of them waiting at Home Depot, trying to earn uh, uh, an earnest day of work. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about many drug dealers that's contributed to the opioid epidemic that we have, the fentanyl trafficking, criminals that
Thank you,
uh,
Mr. Nguyen. The next question is addressed to you first, Mr. Nguyen. Is increased regulation of casinos needed in Virginia? And what is your position on casinos in Fairfax County?
Yeah, interestingly, as a minority in Fairfax County, uh, uh, you know, we are enticed by the nearby casinos from MGM to Casino Live in Maryland, and it actually hurts the minority communities, the low income, the most vulnerable communities the most. That's what casinos do, because those are the people really want to you know uh, 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 get out of their difficulties by making a quick buck. Hopefully their fate can change, but it never works that way. They always lose money, and casinos are bad for low income communities, for the most vulnerable communities. And frankly, yeah, I don't think it should be. If Fairfax County is about fairness and justice and building the American dream, I think it should be building the American dream through hard work um, and stay away from alcohol, gambling, all the vices that can kill your money and the American dream. So yeah, no to casinos.
Right. Ms. Delaney?
I think regulation is important. I think that, for some of the reasons that Mr. Nguyen outlined, we have to be careful to make sure that these aren't something that's exploiting people, kind of giving way to addiction. I think that there are some guardrails that we need to put in place in order to regulate what might otherwise be a more illicit market. But I think that we have to balance that with the government's role in telling people what they can or can't do with their money. I think that if we can strike that balance of the correct amount of regulation to ensure that we are putting around some guardrails to make sure that it's not a predatory business, that it's not, that there are resources available to people who might become addicted or be more vulnerable towards that industry, make it as legitimate, right, as possible, but also recognize that, at the end of the day, it's a business and people have the right to decide how they want to spend their money. As far as the Fairfax Casino, that is a totally different conversation as well, because it is, and that comes back to the issue that it is a local land use decision. Now, the state's going to have some say in it, but the issue that I had with the proposal that got brought to the General Assembly this last session was that it didn't go through the traditional process. The Planning Committee never took a look at it. It wasn't brought to us as part of Fairfax County's agenda. I think if Fairfax County wants a casino, one, the people need to be able to have a say in that, and that's through a local land use decision. Have the Planning and Zoning Committee look at it. have the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors review it and come to the General Assembly and say, this is something we want. That did not happen.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. The next question is for you initially. How would you ensure mental health services are adequately funded and available across the Commonwealth?
Yeah, mental health is a growing issue. I'm sure that everything that our communities experienced during COVID amplified that, but I think there's a lot of other stuff going on. It is a rising need, and it is something that, every opportunity I've had to vote during my time in the General Assembly on advancing access to mental health, I have, and I will continue to do. I think that it kind of aligns with some of the other issues that we've talked about as far as what we need to do to make those investments and continue those investments. And a lot of these issues, they do also come to what's happening at the county level. And through some of this debate, I know Mr. Nguyen has mentioned our role at the state. And I just want to make sure we're not conflating what we as state legislators have the ability to govern versus what our Fairfax County Board of Supervisors have the ability to govern. We have to be able to work together, but making sure that there are issues that are happening at local level across Virginia and not just in Fairfax. How can we make sure that those localities also have the resources that they need to best implement those local programs and to make sure that they are doing that across Virginia? I think that that is an important piece of the puzzle as well.
Thank you. Ms. Delaney, the next question. How do you plan, oops, I'm sorry, Mr. Nguyen, I did not mean to take you out of this question. Could you please just address how to ensure mental health services are adequately funded and available across the Commonwealth?
Yes, and this is another issue that we can agree on. Two fun things, right? I mean, we've discussed early childhood education. We'll discuss healthcare. And this is part of healthcare. Mental health is health is desperately needed. We gotta ensure that we have that. But at the same time, again, we cannot let criminals and traffickers come in and create this opioid epidemic, which creates also other mental health crises. My friend Mike Van Meter that ran for Congress, he's an opioid addiction counselor, and he sees it every day, and that's part of the mental health. We got to do the prevention. We got to get these traffickers out at the same time. Um, again, we make sure the healthcare is there for the people who need them. So we don't have illegal aliens abusing the system, and that we have enough people, physicians, and what have you, treating citizens and the people who need them. And again, I'm not conflating with the General Assembly, because the Democrats have had the General Assembly since 2019. So you guys have had it. You guys, many of these issues, you guys have not addressed. So
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. And for you, the next question. How do you plan to engage with local chambers of commerce and business groups to remain informed on the challenges facing Virginia's small business community?
are you asking me or Dylan?
Yes, I'm asking you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, please?
Yes. How do you plan to engage with local chambers of commerce and business groups to remain informed on the challenges facing Virginia's small business community?
I mean, uh, engagement is very. I mean, go to the meetings, meet with them, network, send out emails. Engagement is such a broad thing, but we also have to invest in it. We gotta encourage small business. We gotta give tax breaks, tax credits to small business so that they can thrive. And again, this area is such heavily government, but that's what we do. We need to invest in small business so that we can offset some of the impact we see at the federal level, right? We have a lot of federal government workers now. Now if they want to start their own freelancing contracting gigs, They should, and then they could, and then we should have less red tape and bureaucracy for them to do that. And again, previously President Trump and Governor Youngkin have put legislation that things like that, no taxes on tips or what have you. So if you're a contractor, if you're a freelancer, uh, you get more money, you get more protections, um, and that you can start your own business.
Thank you. Ms. Delaney.
Yeah, I think this is an issue we have a lot of common ground. I try to meet with the chambers as much as possible, and I do think, listening to their concerns and what some of the barriers to small business they're experiencing, you have to listen to your experts. And if they're the ones that are, encountering people who are trying to start a small business and running against roadblocks, what can we do as lawmakers to help tear some of that down? I think one issue that I've tried to really focus on is reframing economic development away from, not away from, because it's important too. I think we can do two things at the same time. I think adding to our economic development plan, we often see economic development as kind of landing the big companies and celebrating that, which are great celebrations that we've experienced in Virginia over the years of big companies choosing Virginia. There's a lot we need to do to set the stage to make that happen. That's all really important. I think at the same time, and honestly, there's quite a bit of an overlap when you do have companies like Amazon coming into town. You start to see needs for that workforce, and it really provides a real incredible landscape for small businesses to start. And the reason I think we really need to be able to focus on that is that's the real job creation. You can bring companies into Virginia and you're going to get new jobs in Virginia, but those jobs would have been somewhere in this country. They would have been contributing to the overall economy someplace. We want it to be Virginia, yes. But when you have those companies come to Virginia and then you give the opportunity for new businesses to be created, those are new jobs. And those are, I think, just as important and something we need to do at the same time.
You still muted. You're muted, moderator.
I try so hard. Ms. Delaney, what legislative actions should be taken to promote gun safety and prevent gun violence?
Yeah, I think, this is an issue where as a parent, and I've got a student in high school and middle school this year, this is an important conversation. We've got to figure out how to get some common ground on this because our kids are scared going to school and parents were scared dropping our kids off. And we have not been able to find a tremendous amount of common ground in this space. And I think it's an area we really need to sit down and figure out what do we actually do? How do we actually solve this? Because we cannot continue to have a situation where every time you're dropping your kid off at school, you've got that thought in the back of your mind. Anytime you're going to a mass event, you've got that thought in the back of your mind. We need to figure out, how we're going to address this in a bipartisan way and really have some of those hard conversations. I think we have done a lot in Virginia that I support, like red flag laws, background checks, making it harder for the people who can do the most harm to have access to firearms is a path we need to figure out what that looks like. Ideally, we would be able to have a conversation with our friends across the aisle and come up with some real lasting, long-term, generational solutions. Otherwise, we're going to be in a situation where, depending on who's in power, you're going to have laws implemented and then laws repealed and laws implemented and laws repealed. And that's not helping our kids and it's not keeping people safe. I think that there's a lot of issues that are dealing with gun violence and what that looks like to our community and the impact that it has on our community. I think that things like expanding background checks, expanding who has access is super important.
Right. Mr. Wen.
Uh, yes, the only people that I see that have this huge propensity for gun violence are criminals. I mean, citizens who obey the laws. We carry,
Mr.
all the time.
Wen, the question is, what legislative actions should be taken to promote gun safety and prevent gun violence?
So as I was saying, the we already have background checks. We already have red flag laws. We already have many laws that restrict gun carry, and all it does is restrict law-abiding citizens from having the ability to defend themselves. President Trump and Governor Youngkin already help us doing a huge service by what coming after the criminals that are illegals that are coming into our county, that are drug traffickers, MS-13 gangs. All these criminals are the ones that's having the guns, and don't care what law, however many laws that you can write, they don't care because they're already illegal. They already are going to carry illegally, and they are willing to take illegal actions to kill, man, murder, and what have you. I mean, and we see this, throughout the countries already.
Okay.
There have been
Thank
several
you.
incidents.
Mr. Nguyen, next question. How will you work to expand educational funding for special programs such as after-school programs for middle school, young scholars, or programs for twice exceptional students?
Uh, Yes, I mean, and all those are great, and that's a great question because I am a big believer in also investing in our best, right? Not just trying to try to pull up our the students who unfortunately lag behind, um, but we also need to invest in our best. And again, my proposal for school choice, where private schools can provide say a better environment for them, that can be an option. But I believe we have the funding. Fairfax County has one of the largest school budget, and yet we fail again and again on the Democrats. And again, I'm not conflating with the General Assembly, and I believe the General Assembly can continue to pass bills that have education that encourages things. We're looking at uh, building a new high school in our district, in Western Fairfax County, and I would like to propose that to be a magnet school that rivals TJ, where I came from, where I am an alumni. So I believe in that, investing, but again, we got to manage wisely uh, with the money and the budget we have, and that will reap benefits years down the road.
Ms. Delaney.
Yeah, I think we need to fully fund our schools, and we do need to make sure that with that full funding, that the resources are allocated in a way that best serves our community. And I think that programs that help support kids, like the middle school programs, I know that's been a big kind of hot topic for parents in Fairfax, seeing the threat of some of those that funding cut at the county level has been on a lot of parents' radar. I've got a middle schooler now myself, and that it's a great and kind of add-on for a lot of families, but it's a real necessary kind of gap for a lot of kids who really could utilize that kind of support and structure after school as well. And so I think these are really smart investments for us to make in our youth and in our students. And so yeah, I think the answer is to fully fund the schools and make sure that the resources that are part of that full funding are allocated to the programs that do the most good, serve the students in the best way, and the educators as well.
Thank you. It's now time for closing statements. Each candidate has the opportunity for a 1-minute closing statement in the reverse order of the opening statement, starting with Mr. Nguyen.
Yes, well, again, I would like to thank you, League of Women Voters, and other organizations that put this together, and Ms. Delaney for joining. And uh, look, we've had years of Democratic rule, one party rule in Fairfax County. We've also had years of Democratic one party rule in the legislative, and you know um uh, all the proposal that Miss Delaney proposed. I mean, it hasn't happened, right? From prescription drugs to expanding healthcare to, but Governor Youngkin has made some of that happen. And it's time we stop this man. I like to thank Miss Delaney for her years of service. I think, I think that's good, but I think the voters also need to explore alternatives and see what works. It hasn't worked
Thank you,
in the
Mr.
past several years.
Nguyen. Ms. Delaney, your closing statement now.
All right, I know a minute goes fast, so I'm going to just say thank you to all of you for all of this. It has been great to have this conversation. You know, obviously there's some issues that we're not going to agree on, but I think one takeaway is there's probably a lot of common ground that we have, and that's something that I have seen in Richmond that I do want people to recognize that we can agree on a lot, and we have to be able to get back to that place where we can have civil conversations about the issues we don't agree on and actually figure out, okay, well then how do we solve it? If you don't like the way I'm doing it, I don't like the way you're doing it, like let's figure out, like, is there another way? What are we missing? How can we sit down across the aisle and solve some of these problems? You know, during my time in Richmond, it's bounced back and forth. I came in the minority with Republicans in control. Then we did have one term with Democrats in control with the Democratic governor. Then I was back in the minority and then back in the majority with a Republican governor. My prescription drug affordability board bill was vetoed by Governor Youngkin. So I tried to make prescription drugs more cost effective for Virginia, but unfortunately that bill was vetoed. I'm going to keep fighting for our community, working across the aisle for real solutions, and look forward to hearing from all of you.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney and Mr. Nguyen, for agreeing to participate in this forum. Your participation shows your willingness to communicate with the voters. Thank you, viewers, for attending this candidate forum. We appreciate your interest in learning more about the candidates as you make your important voting decisions. Remember to engage in our democracy by voting.
Once again, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to Sarah for moderating tonight.
And thank you, Mr.
And
Nguyen,
we
for
wish
reminding
you
me
both
when I
all
forgot
the
to
best
unmute.
as your campaigns continue on.
Thank you all so much, Nan. It's good to see you. I look forward to hopefully
Yes,
seeing
good
you in
night.
person at one of the upcoming somethings. I'm sure we'll get to see each other in
Yes.
person soon, but it's great to
Yeah.
see you tonight and get a chance to talk about issues. It's super important. I
Sure.
appreciate
Thank
you.
you, Kay.
Thank
Yeah.
you all.
See you soon.
Thanks. Good night.
Bye.